It's great to be back. Thank you so much, Wayne. Really appreciate it. I actually reached out to Wayne and asked him if I could give this talk today because I had such an impactful experience at Icon in 2019. So, for those of you who don't know me, I had a 25-year career in journalism and media, marketing, digital, social media, etc. My last job was at Def Jam as a senior vice president of brand strategy and content. And that was originally why I was asked to do the last summit. But during that time, after I'd agreed to do the last summit, I made a personal decision to take a step back from media, and I was interested in pursuing my own thing. So I wasn't quite sure what it was I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get back into something that I personally enjoyed. So I was looking at different things I wanted to do. So at that time in 2019, it was November. There was one thing I was really passionate about, and that was spirits, in particular American whiskey. I had been working with various liquor stores to do barrel picks, which is the process where you go to a distillery, they roll out single barrels of spirits. You try them, you pick the best one, and they're specially bottled for you. And I was interested in trying to figure out the confluence between retail and e-commerce and bringing more quality spirits to kind of a space that was kind of overrun by older white guys and less accepting of people of color, women, etc. So those were all the things that were going through my head. And so in 2019, I came to the Icon Summit with an idea that I was going to leave my corporate job and start this company. And I had no idea what I was doing or how I was going to accomplish it because I had to get licenses or all these things that I had to do. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wanted to do something on my own. So I came to the Icon Summit. I had an amazing time. I met some amazing people. I had never been to a summit like that was focused on us, and in particular, the mental health aspect of it. And, I had for many years been a corporate leader and never really thought about my own personal mental health in that space. So when I went to this Icon Summit, I was so inspired that I decided, yep, I'm prepared to move forward into the next phase of my life. And that was to start this company. So the talk that I'm going to give today is I'm going to run you through some basics of kind of the last 4 quarters since the company has really been kind of up and running. And I'm going to hit really 4 points. That's going to be for me: inspiration, determination, depression, and ascension. So the first part, which was the inspiration, I just kind of told you, which was when I went to Icon Summit in 2019, I was talking on a panel. I met all these great guys who were doing all these amazing things. And it really gave me the push that I needed to step out onto my own and do something a little bit risky. And from there, I left the summit. I was filled with excitement and pride. And at that point, I was determined to get this business off the ground. So I had to get a liquor license. I had to figure out, based on the strategy for my business, which was to do e-commerce, where was going to be the best place to get this liquor license, and then all of the spirits we were going to sell, and all these other things. So it was pretty complicated. And while that happened, and I was getting it going, boom, here comes COVID, right off the bat. Oops, making it tough. So after it didn't stop me, but I did do all my research and realized that the District of Columbia was the best place for me to start my business. So I went, to the process of having to get fingerprinted, having to get background checked, having to get credit checked, filling out this huge application, getting, someone to find warehousing space for us, and all these things that you do when you have to create a business, in this case, a business that's regulated by the government. And I was able to get my application in just as the country was shutting down. In fact, my partner and I, who's also a black guy, we we get to DC, we hand in our application into ABRO, which is the governing body there for our industry. And I get a call on a Thursday. I get a call on the following Monday, and they say, hey, we've looked at your application. It looks pretty solid. This looks like a real business. We are going to assign you to a specialist. The only problem is everyone has to leave the office, and none of this work to advance your application can be done in the office. And this is all due to COVID. So I spent all of last year, 2020, from March all the way through the summer. And what was supposed to be a 60-day process turned into about a 5-month process. But during that time, I was still extremely determined to get my business off the ground. And so I worked with a bunch of suppliers. I called a bunch of places. I called in favors to see if people would let us do our barrel selections of whiskey, even though we didn't have the licenses that we need to purchase it. So I was fortunate enough that we had, lots. I had enough connections that people understood what was going on, and they were flexible. So I was still in this phase of being majorly determined to make this happen by any means necessary. So by September, we were granted our license so we could start selling. We had done a couple barrel picks during the summer at a place called Hill Rock Estates, which is a distillery in New York State. And we decided to launch on the last day of September with our first single barrel selection, which was a single malt whiskey. The odd thing was that we were not known for single malt whiskeys. We were known for, bourbon, rye, so a very different style in terms of consumers, but it was what we thought was our best opportunity to launch with based on all of the difficulty due to COVID, and so we launched. So Q3 of last year amounted to, we had about 143 members signed up on our website, and we did $2,000 in sales. And that was a head scratcher and really tough. Oh man, what's going to happen here? Did I misstep? Is this not going to be what I thought it was going to be, etc. But again, still determined, still knew it's just the beginning. So bounced right into Q4 last year and just put up much better numbers, added new barrel picks of bourbon, improved the store, improved the shipping situation, worked on the cost, did everything that you do when you start a business to start to fine tune, and bounced back in Q4 with added, almost 500 people to our member program and ended up doing about $28,000 in sales. So excited. I'm thinking, all right, we've fixed some things. We fine tuned some things. This is great. We're moving forward. It's great. And then here comes Q1 2021. And Q1 2021 was actually a really excellent quarter for us. We added another 300 people in our member program. We did about $43,000 in sales. Our returning customer rate was 42%. We had all of these new orders. Visitors were up on our site. Purchases were happening. Things were rolling. But even so, even though, from outward appearances, everything about the business and the entrepreneurship of the business seemed good, I really kind of got hit in Q1 with, for lack of a better term, about a depression. It was just everything was so sad to me. I was really adversely affected by our political climate. I was adversely affected by the January 6th storming of the Capitol, by the brazen way in which people were, demonstrating racist and prejudiced behavior. On top of that, having children and having them being homeschooled. And then on top of having to deal with all these new players in my industry that I had to work with, distributors, new suppliers who didn't want to acknowledge that I had a different type of business and a different style of business and a different strategy of business, and really wanted me to change that back to more traditional styles of business. It was just a really, really difficult quarter. And I think that was the thing that kind of caught me off guard, was how could I, on the one hand, have a business that's growing and be successful and be doing something that I want to do, and also still be kind of down in the dumps about the whole situation. And I think that's kind of one of the things about mental health it's hard to predict or hard for people to understand is even though everything can seemingly be perfect, and even though you can seemingly be successful in your endeavors, it doesn't mean you're going to feel good about it personally when you're at home by yourself and in your own head. So one of the things that happened during that quarter actually was I had maintained a friendship with Dr. Angela Costa, who I'd met at Icon Summit. And I decided one day, we were just chatting online as we often do. And I decided one day to just, hit him up and just be like, yo, what's up? He hit me up. How you doing? Things look great. And I just decided to share with him, to be honest, I was like, it's kind of tough for me right now. It's just really hard going through a complicated time, just trying to juggle all these things, have all this responsibility, figure out what I should do, smile, pretend I'm always happy, participate in social media, do all this business stuff, and he just dropped me a really nice note, a voice note, and just said, I want to, I think that what you're doing is great and hang in there. And, I've personally tried your products. I know that they're good. I'm an advocate for you. And it was really just that small little affirmation that helped me reevaluate how I was thinking about what I was doing and my business and how I was conducting myself personally and what was important to me. And from there, it just changed my outlook on what I needed to do moving forward, how I was going to act moving forward, how I was going to allow things to affect me moving forward, et cetera. And so that brings us to kind of Q4 of this, which is Ascension. So, here we are. I'm not even a year into having, actually launched this company. And we have added another 300 people to our member program. We did just in the quarter alone about $57,000 in sales. Our returning customer rate is through the roof. Our orders we're up to about 400. Visitors are stronger than they've ever been. More people are buying the product. We have press clippings. We have this. We have that. And I know that I'm not anywhere near where I want to be with this company, but and I recognize that in most cases, what's going to happen is, the cycles that I just told you about will probably repeat themselves. Different cycles will be added on, but I don't think it's going to be the last time that I have a cycle of motivation or a cycle of inspiration or unfortunately a cycle of some sort of depression. And so I want everyone to just be mindful that, even though everything seems great, you think you're doing what you want, you think you've made it to a certain mountaintop, it's always a longer journey than you anticipate. And it's okay to kind of repeat some of these steps as long as you can find ways to be happy with yourself and happy with what you're doing. So I have just a few takeaways I just wanted to throw out, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But some of the takeaways I just wanted people to hear was, it really is a journey, and I know that's a cliche way for people to think about it, but that journey is not just like, oh, we're going on a hike. That journey is made up of a series of starts, stops, and sprints, right? And you have to understand that pacing. So you shouldn't trick yourself into thinking you always need to be sprinting, right? Sometimes you have to be in a pause mode. Sometimes you have to be in a starting mode, and sometimes you have to be in a hustle mode. But to believe that you just have to be the entire journey is a hustle mode and running as fast as you can is not the proper way to look at entrepreneurship. It's not the proper way to look at your job in corporate America or anything else that you do. You really have to understand what pacing is going to work for you and is going to maximize your abilities. Number two, and this has come up a couple times today already, don't let the imposter syndrome get the best of you. Like, it's so easy to feel like you are not worthy or you're not qualified or anything of that nature. It's just there's always so many stops. There's always so many barriers. And in our case, in particular, people of color, there consistently seem to be barriers put in our way that other people may not have. And rather than recognize those for what they are, it's very easy for you mentally to believe that, oh, this is happening because I'm just not good enough at this, or to second guess why you decided to do it in the first place. But just know that that's just not an us problem. That is an everyone problem. It's just we have been conditioned to internalize it differently and to make ourselves feel like we're less than and not good enough. And we have to, sometimes when that hits you, and it's hard to understand, but you have to recognize it, take a time out and take a step back, and then say, hey, there were, Jeff Bezos didn't know everything when he was starting Amazon, and this other guy who did this thing, and this other person, they didn't know anything when they started either. And everyone starts from scratch. Everyone starts from some position of a lack of understanding, a lack of resources, a lack of knowledge, and that's okay. It's totally okay to not be an expert in your field on day 1, day 2, day 10, year 1, year 2, year 3. Like, that's just growth. Right. So don't confuse the fact that growth is you not being worthy of what you're doing. I think the other thing, and this is my point 3. This is a kind of just a realist point, because I think it's easy for depression to spiral from this, is that you're going to meet all of these people, right? You're going to meet tons and tons of people. You're going to make friends. You're going to make business acquaintances, and people are going to tell you that they're going to help you. And in most cases, they're not. And I don't mean that to be a pessimist, but I think you have to also understand that a lot of times people will make a commitment that they can't follow through with for reasons that have nothing to do with you. It might be their own schedule. They're busy. Their life circumstance has changed, but you also cannot let that impact your personal mental health. You can't internalize that and say, oh, person said they were going to help me and then they didn't. It's because they don't think what I'm doing is valuable. That's probably in all likelihood not the case at all. It's just their life circumstances have changed, but be realistic about it. So if it turns out that you make a connection and you think that that's going to be a resource and it turns out not to be, it's okay. There are lots and lots of other resources out there. There are tons of other resources. There are tons of other people you can turn to. Don't get hung up in estimating or guesstimating why someone else doesn't have the ability to help you. Figure out what the next best move is for you and who the next best person you can turn to is for you. My next point is, it's not weak to be overwhelmed in any of our industries, whether you're talking about entrepreneurship, whether you're talking about dealing with, prejudice and inadvertent racism in corporate America, whether you're talking about, working in education or any field. Like, everyone is going to be overwhelmed at some point in time, because in most cases there aren't the resources dedicated to what you're doing, right? Only in scenarios where you work at companies that have unlimited budgets and their issue is time, not money, do you find that the resources are there to do anything that you possibly could want. So, entrepreneurship, that's not the case. Education, that's not the case. In most of these places, it's not the case. So, you're not demonstrating weakness by being overwhelmed. That just is a part of how the beginnings of your work happen. So you just be aware of that, right? Don't perceive yourself as weak just because you have somehow gotten yourself into a situation, whether intentional or unintentional, where you feel like there's too much to do. All right. That is a common occurrence in all business, and you have to steer through it. My next point is, you're going to need an affirmation, right? And so in my case, I was fortunate to have someone that literally was kind enough to drop me a note and say, he believed in me and all that stuff. It may be your wife, it may be your therapist, it may be your brother, your sister, or a friend. It could be anyone. But it is important at some point in time to have people give you a pat on the back, listen to what you have to say for a hot second, and, be a sounding board and just say, hey, it's okay. Steady the path, We're going to be good. My next one is, this is a little weird, but, or not so weird, but maybe weird for me, but it's okay. Step away from social media at some point in time. Like, the social media, while it can be a blessing for a business or a bullhorn for your ability to market yourself or what you're doing, it also can be a gateway to depression. There's a lot of stuff going on there, right? And there's a lot of algorithms and a lot of these social media that's meant to keep us on these platforms. And a lot of these algorithms are based on, winding your, getting your stress levels up and winding yourself into a ball and getting animated and angry. And so sometimes you just need to take a break from that, shut it off, and, and figure out other ways for you to spend your time. Don't feel like you have to be on social media all the time, and it's okay to take regular breaks, extended breaks from social media, as long as it's not about for your personal sanity as well. The next thing is be flexible. Recognize that there is no linear path from start to finish in anything that we do that has to do with business. It's not like a board game where you go around in a square, you go around in a circle, you start at one place and then you get to the end and then the game is over. The road through life and the road through business is a choose your own adventure that has many offshoots at many paths that can go in any direction. And sometimes they loop you back around to someplace you've already been. And sometimes they take you someplace you've never been before. So you have to be flexible about understanding that you're going to have to go in directions you may not be aware of right now, but it's going to happen at some point in time. And so when you're at that fork in the road and you're confronted with that, then understand that it's okay to not know which path is the right to choose. It'll be better for you to choose a path than to let yourself wallow in uncertainty. It's okay to make a decision and not be 100% sure about it. It's 100% fine to do that. You'll be able to work it out as long as you, believe in yourself and believe in your goal and have people there to support you. The next thing I think is set goals for yourself and have a plan. But as I said before, being flexible, know that that's going to change. There is no plan that starts and finishes without a hitch. There is no plan that starts and finishes as it was originally drawn up. It just doesn't work that way. And so you want to have things that you're aspiring to accomplish. You want to have things that you want to boxes you want to check. But know that if your plan says you have to check these 5 boxes and you only end up checking 3, that's also not a problem. The reason you may not have checked those other 2 is because it turned out that they weren't as important to your business once your business was live, or they weren't as important to your career once your career was on the go as you thought they would be when you began. Number 9, and this is one I'm dealing with actually right now, and I consider myself to be in an ascension phase in my first year of business, is figure out what you can offload. So doing it all, we have this misconception that doing it all is a badge of courage, and that if you have the ability to do it all, then it makes you a better person. And I suffer from this myself regularly, and it's difficult for me to deal with. And only now am I looking at it like, look at all these things that I'm juggling and holding and trying to balance. And wouldn't it just make less sense if I wasn't trying to, spin a teacup on top of a stick that has 7 pieces of fruit in it while standing on one leg? So be mindful that you want to get to a point where some of your work, which you didn't want to let go, you have to let it go. And you have to find out how you can share that burden either with your coworkers or your partner, or hire someone to do it. But if it means making a choice between doing too much and your mental health, you should always choose your mental health. And my last point I'm going to make is you have to have trust in yourself. So there's a reason why you set out on your journey. In most cases, most people aren't going to know or understand that. In some cases, we're all going to have difficulty explaining that to the people around us. But so just have some faith in yourself. Know that you're doing what you're doing for a reason, and understand that things, may change, but, don't lack in self-confidence based on what you want to do. Believe that you can accomplish it, and know that even if you don't accomplish it and things change and they move, that you went on this journey for a reason that maybe only you know. It would be great if you could explain it to other people. It would be great if you could get feedback on it, but getting to that point where you can share in that takes time. So thank you very much. I had a really great time with the talk. If anyone has anything they want to ask, let me know. I'd be happy to answer.
Hey, Orlando, really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing, and awesome to hear the depth of your journey. From where we last met in 2019 to where you are now, and glad you was able to meet Dr. I'm glad you have the connection at the summit to be able to have that relationship, to want to reach out and support you. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. We got to jump into our next session. So really appreciate it, and thanks for joining. Thanks for reach out and be proactive about speaking. A lot of humans don't do that, so it was awesome doing that. So thanks.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna stay tuned in, and love to be back next year as well.
Awesome. All right. Good luck with business and life. All right. Cool. Awesome.